The 3536 dice set. Feels lucky. Let's roll it out and see how it performs. Stick around. There's an endless debate in the craps community. Can dice setting actually create a player advantage? Between the grip, the load, the launch, and the landing, the sources of variation seem endless. But if we can minimize those variables with consistent technique, can we actually find an edge? How many rolls can a specific set survive before the dreaded 7 ends the run? We're putting the physics to the test and collecting the raw data. Is it skill or just plain luck? Let's find out on this episode of What Are the Odds? Good day to you today. Thanks for tuning in on this 3536 rollout. If you're new here, we're going to roll the 3536 dice set as many times as we can until the 7 comes out 10 times. So theoretically, we should have about 60 rolls in a normal distribution curve. Our first roll here is going to produce a 1-1, aces in both places. We're going to log that into our dice tracker and continue doing this until we produce 10 sevens. In the interest of time, we'll speed things up and break down the data on the back end of this video. Stay tuned. Well, that was an unexpected result. 102 rolls before the 7 came out 10 times. We really suppressed that big red with this dice set, the 3536. Our longest streak was only 25. I mean, it was decent compared to other dice sets. But man, data-wise, this crushed the 7. Let's look at the numbers on a per count basis. So right away, we see distribution that favors the left of 7, everything less than 7, starting with the 5 all the way down to 2. Heavy favoritism on this side of the dice. And on the opposite end, the 10-11 produced where it should have, and the 12 was also favorable. What really stands out here is the number of results that beat the 7. We had 4 numbers here that outperformed, from the 4, the 5, the 6, and the 8. While the 4 and 5 both rolled 15 times, statistically, the 4 was the best number in this set. The next best number on a standard deviation basis was the 5, followed by the 2. The absolute worst number in this dice set based on standard deviation is the 7, then followed by the 9. We should have rolled that 7 17 times with 102 rolls, but we came up 7 rolls short. So what an outstanding dice set. And with this distribution curve, you can really see how our inside numbers came up short, with the exception of the 5. The 6 and 8 just were not performing as well as the rest of the numbers. However, they still beat the 7. The sister set's very interesting here. Our outside numbers, the 4 and the 10, were the heavy favorites, followed by our horn sisters. The extreme 2 and 12 were the second best favorite, and then the 3 and 11. The 5 and 9 came up just 2 rolls short, and the 6 and 8 came up more than 5 rolls short. That standard there would have been 28.3, which didn't make it into our chart. And on our hard ways here, despite the red, we actually were basically right there on our hard ways, less than a roll short of meeting expectations. Our 10 was very strong, with more than half of those rolls being produced as a hard way. The 4 was exactly 1 roll short of meeting its expectations, as well as the 6 and the 8 2 rolls short. And these horns, holy cow, 25 horns thrown out of 102 throws. Almost 25% of our throws were horns. We only expected 17 horns to come out. The 2 was our standout horn player here, coming out twice as many times as expected. The 12 almost twice as many times as expected. And the 3 and 11 were also strong performers. We did have 5 see a horn, bet a horn hits, meaning we had back-to-back consecutive hits. However, we never achieved a parlay of back-to-back-to-back hits, going from a CE to a horn to a win. So let's sum it all up on the 3536. From a strategy standpoint, heavy late side favorite. 102 actual rolls versus 60. This was incredible. Out of all the dice sets we have tried to prove out so far, could have been a fluke, but man, we went on a tear. And as we saw earlier, we had biased favorability left of the 7, primarily in the 2 through the 5, but even the 6 did outperform the 7. And looking at those individual numbers, we had 4 numbers beat the 7, which were the 4, 5, 6, and 8 in that order. No number was statistically worse in its standard deviation than the 7. Absolutely incredible. The hard ways didn't disappoint. They came up 1 roll short of expectations, with the 10 being the only hard way to exceed expectations, which it did show up 50% of the time when a 10 did come out. And the horns, as you just saw, were simply outstanding, rolling 47% more times than expected. And while we did have 5 see a horn, bet a horn hits that represented 20% of our horns that showed up, we weren't able to parlay any of those from a CE into a horn bet into a win. And that is the 3536B set dice set. I really enjoyed that one. I hope you guys did too. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have an outstanding rest of your day. And as always, I look forward to you joining me on the next episode of What Are the Odds?